All right, Darrin. Roman Reigns is back, but now he might be dead. He got beat up badly. Jacob Fatu attacked him with a super kick, blindsided him just as he put the tribal chief necklace around his neck and exhaled like all is well in the world again. And then he got attacked by Jacob Fatu. Jacob Fatu, by the way, wearing an ankle, a boot, a protective boot on his injured leg. So he can go, he can attack. I don't know. They put him in the graphic for next week's tag team title match. So maybe he'll be out of the boot by next week, or he'll just wrestle in it. But that sort of answers, I guess, some of the questions that we had in terms of, was the injury legit? How bad was it? And it felt like legit, not that bad. And they didn't need to change a lot to get him back in the mix. So what did you think of the angle? I mean, to me, this is not a bad thing. It just sort of went exactly as I imagined if Jacob Fatu was healthy enough to attack Roman, which he was.
Right. Yeah, and he seemed to be moving around fine, so that's a good sign as well. But
Yeah.
it's what needed to happen because Solo was on the losing end of two brawls in a row, so he needed to get some heat back, as they say, and because he was starting to look a little weak, and it did take Fatu to come save the day for him, so he did kind of look weak again for a third week in a row. So that's a situation they're really going to have to do some work with, because I don't know if Solo was quite ready for that spot as it has played out over the last few weeks. The match against Cody was okay, but he just didn't turn out to be that strong of a challenge. So they've got a little problem ahead of them because nobody thinks at least Solo could beat Roman Reigns, and that's a little bit of an issue. But I mean, the fans there in the arena didn't seem to mind. He got a fantastic reaction and everything. It did dawn on me that the two biggest feuds in WWE are revolving around a necklace and a bracelet, though. So
well, not a bracelet anymore. Punk decided that thing that cost him his match against Drew when Seth innocuously put it on doesn't actually matter. So
right,
something
all
that
of a sudden.
yeah, something that mattered the world to him because of the symbolism. Now suddenly means nothing because people online made fun of it or something. I don't know. But yeah. I mean, the necklace represents something very important to Roman Reigns and Solo and the Bloodline. I thought it was interesting how they set up the segment where Solo just outright said, if Roman can take this from me, he becomes the tribal chief again. Like, I felt that was a rather sudden, just, yeah, this is almost magical. Like, we all just agree, we'll acknowledge whoever has this necklace around their neck. And I thought that was, wouldn't call it a concession by Solo, but it certainly foreshadowed what was going to happen, and that Solo is going to have to give up. He was willingly giving up calling himself the tribal chief as long as the necklace was around Reigns' neck. Now, that by the end of the show with the attack can change things. But yeah. So anyway, what do you think about that?
It kind of foreshadowed that Roman would not be getting it back because there was no way they were going to end it. And I was a little surprised that he wound up even dramatically putting it around his neck. Roman putting it around his neck. I was a little bit surprised, and I did like how he did it. It was very dramatic because I was sure someone was going to stop him from doing it, especially after that speech that Solo had given. They did get it back by the end of the evening, however. So I guess Solo remains the tribal chief, and they'll have a big match, the showdown, for the actual title of it. But yeah, that was a little surprising that he did mention that.
And in a way, it was this closing scene, Solo putting it back on, was standing over Reigns. I'll cue it up and I'll see. I assume that was the end. I was just getting ready for the live stream here.
Me as well.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe the chat room knows, but I'll have it queued up in like 15 seconds here. So yeah, Roman got to be tribal chief for 20 seconds and then, or 10 seconds before Jacob Fatu attacked him. Jacob Fatu, though, I mean, he is a beast. You talked about Solo maybe being a little weak in this type of role. And I agree that he's not a full-fledged, he doesn't feel like he's on level ground with Roman. He doesn't feel like, but he already had a big match at SummerSlam. And so the grudge over tribal chief is fine, but it's not ideal that Solo isn't at the level. of Roman, because that's hard. Roman is at a really, really, really top level. But I think it's less of a problem because Jacob Fatu is so freaking impressive. So Solo gets to be the leader, the vocal leader, the tribal chief, but he's going to be fed to Cody and Roman, and then it's going to be Jacob Fatu who's the money match. And I'm okay with that. I think they probably will just shift to Solo not being the main guy. I'm trying to think of a comparison historically, because there's something in my mind wrestling wise where somebody initially was like the leader and the main person fed to a main event babyface, and then somebody else ended up being the stronger person. And it's been bugging me, and I've thought about it in the past and haven't come up with it. So if anyone can think of that.
That does sound familiar. And I'm trying to think the Attitude Era, perhaps.
Yeah. I wish I even had in my head like a timestamp. It isn't necessarily recent. But anyway, I don't want to get bogged down in that. But yeah, like the chat room. Adam Kidd says Jacob Fatu might be the most impressive main stage rookie in the last 10 years. Well, it helps to have as many years under your belt as he does before you become a rookie. But no, I mean, that's true. I mean, you can be a rookie in the NHL at age 30 if you're just develop slowly or get called up, when there's a bunch of injuries on a team. And Azan White says Jacob Fatu in walking boot beating Roman ass. Oh, you know what? Faustian Bargain says Ron Simmons was originally the leader of the NOD before The Rock. I can't rule out that that's not what's in the back of my mind. So thank you, Faustian. That I'll just say that's what I was trying to think of, because that validates my whole thing, because that really does work.
Absolutely fits. That's probably what. Yeah.
Yep.
And I mean, Solo has big shoes to fill. It's not saying that he won't eventually get there or just to write him off, but I mean, the history that Roman Reigns has behind him, that's a difficult level to achieve. And Solo's relatively just came up to the main roster himself within the last 2 years. So, I mean, it's nothing to be ashamed about, but it's just a difficult spot to rise to that level that Roman's at.
It's an intangible that he doesn't quite have, but he's good enough. I mean, I say this, it sounds sort of like a backhanded compliment. It's not meant to be. I think he just hits the threshold enough to be a guy you can main event a couple pay-per-views with before you now shift to Jacob Fatu. I think they have had higher hopes for Solo. There's just something about his demeanor that doesn't quite ooze intimidation and gravitas, but he's good enough. I mean, the lighting for his entrance was cool. I think he's coming along. I mean, I think he's improving, just not quite fast enough where you're like, oh, who needs Roman? We got Solo. Like, nobody's saying that, in terms of a centerpiece type star. But that's fine if I would say if the bloodline ends up with a leader who's not the biggest badass of the group, that's fine. He can still be the leader at trying to control Solo. So interesting. All right, well, let's pause. We got a lot more to talk about on tonight's show. We can discuss this topic more. We'll have video callers. I haven't checked the inbox yet, but we'll probably get to emails and more chat room interaction. But first, let's introduce ourselves. This is the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show for Friday, August 16th, 2024. I'm Wade Keller, host of the show, the editor, publisher, and founder of the Pro Wrestling Torch weekly newsletter, predating the internet, and still being published on a weekly basis, although we took this week off. Also, I oversee, launch, and write for our main website, PWTorch.com, which is features news, live TV, and pay-per-view coverage, special editorials, and other types of features, polls, flashbacks, cool stuff. We actually put up my Raw report from 30 years ago earlier this week, which was kind of fun to look back on. Raw was so different 30 years ago, Darrin. Oh my God. It ended in the final segment was a squash match. Like it was before Nitro. People who don't know, like people know about the Monday Night War, but I don't think they know how much Eric Bischoff's vision for Nitro kicked Vince McMahon into a different gear for Raw. Raw was, and I could talk 15 minutes about the origin of Raw and how it was different than primetime wrestling and syndication, but how it wasn't in the early stages what it became, although I loved it. It was really fun. But anyway, I'll stop myself there. We are here to talk SmackDown tonight, not the history of Raw and Nitro. But check out our website. That's how that all started, PWTorch.com. And we also have podcast feeds, which we invite you to subscribe to. It might be easier if you're watching us on YouTube, either live or after the fact. It might be easier for you to listen to us in podcast format, and that is an option. All you have to do is go to your podcast app of choice, and then search Wade Keller. And when you search Wade Keller, you'll see a red logo and a blue logo pop up with my face on it. The red logo are the post shows, and it's free. And there's bonus content on there, including flashbacks and other stuff. And then while you're at it, subscribe to the blue logo show because that will get you content that is not at all available on YouTube. That is our main podcast, our weekly flagship edition. Jason Paul joined me this week. And every week we have our flagship. We run interviews. We run pay-per-view previews. We'll probably have a dedicated episode next week previewing AEW All In. So subscribe to that. If you haven't, search Wade Keller right now while you're listening to us. If your phone is handy, search Wade Keller and subscribe. And then finally, check out the PWTorch Daily Cast. Search PWTorch to subscribe to that. One of the shows, speaking of wrestling history and 30 years ago, is the PWTorch 90s Past Cast. Patrick Moynihan and Alex McDonald review a PWTorch newsletter on the 30th anniversary of it being published, and they spend a lot of time going in-depth on big things, little nuggets, little things here and there, backstage news, what our editorial comments were on wrestlers, and it's a real cool time machine. And that is a free podcast feed also. So search PWTorch, different show each day of the week. PWTorch Daily, the PWTorch 90s Pastcast, just one of the daily shows that are free. As a WWE fan, you might be interested in acknowledging WWE with Kevin Duncan and Javier Machado. That's a weekly show also that is part of that lineup that is free. So go check it out. But we're here to talk SmackDown, and we have with us Darrin Lilly. He is a regular here on the post show, usually on Monday night. So it's good to have you here on a Friday night, Darrin. And you cover Impact Wrestling. That's kind of your beat, primary beat for PWTorch. You have your TV reports on PWTorch.com every Thursday. Thanks for your continued coverage of that. And also a VIP show with John Laszlo reviewing Impact. There's fewer podcasts out there reviewing Impact than SmackDown, for instance. And it's great that you two do that. And I know our VIP members appreciate it. Darrin, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Excellent. So you can email us if you're live streaming the show. WadeKellerPodcast@gmail.com. The graphics on the screen if you're watching us on YouTube. WadeKellerPodcast@gmail.com. I said that slower for our podcast listeners. You can participate in the show, even if you don't watch us live, by sending an email with a topic suggestion, a rant, a question, a reaction to the show. And we welcome you doing that. If you do live stream our show on YouTube, on the PWTorch channel, you can be part of the chat room. And if you are a VIP member or Patreon supporter of PWTorch, we give you a caller code, a video caller code in my TV report at PWTorchVIP.com and also on our Patreon page if you want to call in and be a video caller. All right. So let's pivot back to talking SmackDown, and we're probably going to do, well, I say this and it jinxes us, but we'll probably do a shorter show than usual tonight. So let's just go right to Rude Dog, and let's see where Rude Dog leads us in the discussion. He's welcome to bring up more about, there's a Moxley shirt. People in the chat are talking about Moxley, Rude Dog. We could talk more about the Bloodline angle or whatever else, whatever you want to bring up, Rude Dog.
All right. I'll try to be a little more rapid fire since you are both running on fumes, but
that is off record.
Sorry.
Yeah.
All right. So real quick about the Bloodline.
Yeah.
Is Solo and Roman going to be at Bash at Berlin? And if so, are they going to be headlining? Because I can't see this kind of weak build up between Cody and Kevin Owens like being over Roman.
Darrin, what do you think?
I can't imagine that they would put that on a Berlin show. Usually those shows they keep to like 5 matches. They headline where they kind of, I don't want to say throwaway opponent because Kevin Owens is fantastic, but would be not one of their main marquee title matches. I could see them headlining that, but I agree with Rude Dog. They would not have that headlining over the Roman Reigns one, but I think they'll wait for that, and maybe Roman will be out for a while selling this injury, perhaps.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see Roman on Bash in Berlin. I don't know that, but I don't think so.
Okay, and then another Bloodline thing. So Jacob Fatu in the walking boot, is this a work injury or is it like legit? Do you know? Because he was moving around pretty well.
I don't think there's any reason for him to be wearing a walking boot, which, by the way, could cause an injury because it's kind of awkward to wear. I think he hurt his leg legit, and they were just they just figured after evaluation he'd be ready to come back this week, and he did, and they did this angle. We might find out differently. I don't have solid 100% information on that, but everything points to he got legitimately hurt. But it wasn't something that derailed the timeline of what they wanted to do, but he needed a walking boot to protect him. He was moving around really well, but I don't think that means it's a fake injury, because if it was a fake injury, why even have the walking boot? They don't need to. I mean, that's not WWE style to just put a boot on a guy. And they never acknowledge his injury. I mean, it's not even part of the storyline, so it would make no sense to include a boot. Darren, what do you think?
Yeah, it's just odd, though, that if he has an injury and it's legitimate, and he requires a walking boot, why they would have him do physical activity. I don't know why you would be cleared if you still require a walking boot. So that's a little bit of a gray area.
I guess we'll bring up Bob Orton Jr. He wore a cast. He was injured, but he was still able to wrestle in the cast, and then he kind of wore it beyond the injury. I think you can wear a boot that protects you from aggravating the injury, or likely protects you, but they want to get him out there doing this. And so, I think we'll hear. I mean, I think it'll take a little while, because I think they wanted this to be a surprise. But I think now, I won't say the floodgates will open, but they were very protective of what happened and detailing it. I think now that this angle happened, there'll be a little more free-flowing information about like what happened. So we'll just I'll ask around, and maybe some other people report on it too. Rudo.
Okay. So, I think I had different subject. I think I had higher hopes for Grayson Waller than most. Like, he was the first act that sucked me back into NXT, like during the 2.0 era. He gets compared a lot to The Miz but I think he's much a better wrestler than The Miz and more interesting. The Miz was a former WWE champ. What do you think is next for Grayson Waller's?
Miz was a former WWE champ, but I'm trying to think of a sports analogy. It doesn't really, that normally means more than it does when you say that about Miz. I'll just say that, being a former champion. I mean, you can't take it away from him, but he wasn't at the level of most WWE champions. He was a guy who visited there at a peak of his career when he had, some sort of, I guess, credibility or heat or whatever. But I think Miz, if we look at the vast majority of Miz's career, it's similar to Grayson Waller. I don't know if I think Grayson Waller's a better wrestler than Miz. I think there's a more dynamic athleticism. And I don't think they're far off. I don't think they're like in a completely separate class, but I don't think it's decisive that Waller is better. I think he's a better natural athlete. But there was a point where Miz had some credibility in the way that he carried himself in the ring. I mean, it's a close call. What do you think, Darren?
For the foreseeable future, I kind of see Grayson Waller in that comedy role, and there's a lot of value in that. He's the guy that will interrupt celebrities when they come in, and the guy to get beat up, and there's a lot of value in that. And every once in a while, takes a win to keep his credibility. But until he does the eventual split with Austin Theory, I think that's where he's going to be. Once they split off, then we'll see what his ceiling is going to be. But I mean, even if he stays at this level, he could do that for years, and I don't really see that as an issue. It's a good role to have, with just playing off of people being in a comedy role, getting to interrupt people, that kind of thing. So I don't think it's the end of the world if he just stays in that slot.
And I think too, there's just depth on this roster right now. I don't think that there's an opening for Waller to move up to the level that Miz did. I just think there's too many main event credible guys. The roster is better. I'd have to go back and look at the times Miz was WWE champion and the context to refresh my memory. But I mean, I just don't think Waller is on a trajectory, and he's a little bit older too, for getting the spot. Not LA Knight, old rookie, but still, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, but yeah, what Darren said. I mean, Waller's gonna have a nice career. I would be surprised if he wins a world title. I'd be actually really surprised, and that's not a dig at him. I think. I mean, it sounds like I'm just WWE's deep enough, and I just don't think he exudes that being the role for him. I mean, some people are running backs, and other people are defensive tackles. I mean, I just don't think he's a world champion type mold.
All right. Well, I'm going to keep moving on. So you spoke of LA Knight. Santos Escobar says he's going to take the U.S. title off LA Knight next week. You think there's any chance that could happen? Because I thought Santos had more of an upside, but he seems pretty boring on SmackDown, and his goon squad, as LA Knight said, seems to be holding him back more than elevating him, in my opinion. What do you think of Santos on SmackDown?
I wouldn't be surprised if Santos ends LA Knight's title reign. There's a question on the Fixed Mailbag. I think it was the Mailbag, yeah. About should there sometimes be a champion who seems like they're destined to hold it for a while, who unexpectedly lose it quickly in order to add unpredictability to matches like Kevin Owens against Cody, or Cody against AJ, or Gunther against Orton, where everyone's like, well, they're not going to switch the title that quick. And I wouldn't force it in a bad situation. But if an opportunity comes up at a lower level like this, where it's like, oh, LA Knight beat Logan, and now he's going to have a nice US title reign, and it ends kind of quickly, it has, I think, a reverberation benefit to add a little unpredictability, that when it seems like somebody might be settling in for a title reign, it ends quickly. Also, I think Escobar needs it. I mean, he just hasn't been built up credibly as a U.S. title level guy, and you don't always want to give someone a belt and use the belt to boost them. But I think if he comes up short against Knight, I mean, it kind of defines him quite a bit down. But then if you're in Rude Dog's camp, he should just lose. It should just be the first opponent for Knight, and then they just move on to the next guy, and Santos goes back to being a mid-card boring guy, as Rude Dog said. Darren, what do you think?
It's a compelling scenario if Escobar was to win the title, but my initial thought was no way. I think LA Knight's keeping it. He's a guy that you also want to keep strong for the fans' sake and give him a little bit of a title run. I mean, he just won the title, so I don't think they would take it off of him. I am compelled by that whole scenario. I agree. I just don't think, just based on what we've seen the last few months, I think he's a really good wrestler, but I just don't think they see him as more than a role player or someone you can put in mid-card feuds, and I really don't see them boosting him above that level, unfortunately for him.
I didn't mind the dinner scene that they did tonight, just kind of saying, hey, we all need to step up, and kind of issuing his mission. I mean, I thought it was a good setting, and I think he is good when he seems like he's having this like, I don't know, whatever, not necessarily mafia meeting, but like the leader of a threatening group, and he's kind of giving everybody their instructions. That was a good way to build the matchup, and LA Knight was good in this mic work tonight. He does the same thing all the time, but there was I thought some of his lines were better. Maybe I'm a little bit trash, but this trash gonna whatever, bury you in dirt or something, whatever he said. A little variation on it. Rude Dog, what do you think?
Well, I'm just curious what you think about what LA Knight said was Santos's goon squad. Are they helping him at all, or are they just dead weight?
Well, they're not dead weight because it gives Santos someone to interfere on his behalf, and that happens with heels. Sasha Banks as Camille. I mean, it's just Mercedes Moné as Camille. I mean, that's just kind of a thing you do. You get the chaos at ringside to interfere on your behalf. I think it's actually helpful for his character to be the leader of others. I actually think that's where he shines more than when he's just standing there alone trying to cut a promo. Darren, any quick thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it gives him a little bit extra, gives him people to play off of, and because I think it would be really bad if he was just there by himself, but he gets to play off of them and extend feuds, that type of thing. So I think they're a benefit.
Rude Dog.
All right. Well, the last thing, I was listening to The Fix, so go VIP, everyone, because it's worth it just for that, let alone all the other stuff you get. But Todd Martin said a joke, but he wouldn't repeat it. It was talking about Tony Khan's booking. Did you ever listen back to it? Because if not, I can tell you what it is real quick.
No, I actually edited out the door slamming when I let the dog in, and that's I had to step like 10 feet away when that happened, and I missed the punchline to his joke. I had the volume turned up, but I still didn't hear it over the bang of the door. So I edited that out, but I forgot to actually listen like 10 seconds earlier to the punchline, but other people have told me since. So
Okay.
I am up to speed on it, and I can't remember it, but it was good. It was good. Good yeah.
All right. Well, fair enough. I won't repeat it. And go VIP if you want to hear what it is. And that's all for me tonight. Yeah. I want you to have a good night rest and take care.
Thanks, Drew Dog. Good talking to you. I'll throw the VIP plug on the screen here. Actually, we got a 7-day trial on Patreon. If you want to try us free on Patreon, 7 days free. You can just immerse yourself in our VIP podcast lineup. Lots of good stuff that is VIP exclusive, plus ad-free versions of our free shows like this one. Or you can go full VIP, get access to our 35-plus year library, ad-free access to our website, and more. Full details at pwtorch.com/govip, pwtorch.com/govip. That'll give you full details on all the ways you can sign up, including through your Apple account on your iPhone, too. All right, let's bring the heel Mark into the show if he is ready for us. His camera is not on. Maybe he's doing audio only. We'll test it out. Mark,
yes,
welcome.
I am doing audio only.
No problem.
I have multiple sclerosis, and I had an accident earlier where I fell out of my wheelchair. So,
oh no,
I'm laying in bed.
Okay. Well, sorry to hear that. But I'm glad you still can talk and join us.
Oh, dude, I'm still kicking. I'm just in a lot of pain.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you guys are the praying type, please pray for me. Other than that, what a great show on the 23rd birthday of the first episode of Smackdown. There's a little thing in case anybody didn't know that one.
Is it really? I didn't.
It's the 23rd anniversary of the first episode of Smackdown.
I wouldn't have thought Smackdown debuted in mid-August, but I'm not doubting.
Yeah, it's the 23rd episode. 23rd or 23 year and yeah. Anyway, my big talk that I want to talk about is the opening segment. Like seriously, okay, I'm a big fan of Pretty Deadly, but oh my gosh, that was nails on the chalkboard, cringing.
Oh, he left us and then came back. Let's try this. Go ahead, Mark.
Oh,
nails on the chalkboard. Okay? Yeah, you're fine. You just for some reason
it was like just nails on the chalkboard, cringe. But on top of that, my big thing is I'm just sitting there, and did anybody else notice like Nia is just like wanting to go? It literally looked like she was going to go and attack Tiffy or attack Pretty Deadly, but then Michin came out of nowhere, and I'm like, I just totally just see this happening because I just seen the look on her face. Like, was I the only one that saw that?
So yeah, I thought that they very much, Darrin, made it clear Nia Jackson is not long for dealing with Tiffany. It was, Nia was rude, pink isn't my color. Tiffany went all out for her and she wasn't very appreciative. And I mean, that's how you go heel. Is someone throws a party for you and you critique the party. That's very heelish in all walks of life. And I mean, she even had giant inflatable unicorns. I mean, come on. So obviously, I mean, they've been subtle for pro wrestling hinting at this, and this was the more overtly subtle indication that it's not going to last. And Tiffany was uncomfortable, but not just despondent. She wasn't selling like, well, it's all over, Nia doesn't like me anymore. It's just like, oh, I didn't make her happy, but I also think she was her body language and facial expressions like, I didn't make her happy, so I'm disappointed, but also she was kind of rude and mean, and maybe this is making me rethink how I think about Nia Jax. The way that I described Pretty Deadly, and then Michin attacking and ending the ceremony is it ended just in time before it went from amusing to belabored. And I think it did. I mean, I think it worked. I think it was entertaining. Pretty Deadly were meant to be nails on a chalkboard. I mean, it wasn't meant to be a good performance. It was meant to be obnoxious. And they were meant to be oblivious to their obnoxiousness. But they didn't belabor the point. In pro wrestling, sometimes people get an idea for something comedic and they just go way too long with it. And I thought they found a pretty good sweet spot to end it. So we got to see some of the humor and see Pretty Deadly embarrass themselves, unbeknownst to them because they're not self-aware. And then boom, Michin broke it up. So I thought it was a good exit strategy. So the segment didn't go on too long. What do you think of the opening segment?
Also, Nia Jax was going to make Tiffany bow as well. So that
that's
another thing. Yeah.
Now, right now, and Tiffany's like, no, we'll do it later.
Yeah. But as far as the segment, I did not care for it at all. I thought it was back one of those couple years ago type of things that they did, and I just did not care for it at all. I just thought it was silly, and I could not wait for it to be over. I did like the fact that you're going to see a split with Tiffany. I think she's leveled off a bit since the Elimination Chamber, despite winning the briefcase and everything, but she was really over with the fans during that Elimination Chamber, and I remember people cheering for her in Australia, and I think she's leveled off a bit, so maybe she needs a new direction, and her going up against Nia, who's mistreating her, I think that could do a little bit of course correcting, perhaps. And I like the end with Mia Yim coming in, so glad to see that they're doing something with her because I think she's a pretty valuable talent, and I don't expect that she'll win the belt or anything, but I'm glad to see that she's in the mix at least. But yeah, this segment, I just did not care for it. It's just not my type of thing, and luckily it did not. The saving grace, it did not go on forever. But
yeah, in fact, I would say every 15-second block of that segment served a purpose. You know what I mean? Like, it might not be your thing, but there was, first setting the scene, and then Tiffany being proud, and then Nia coming out with being rolled to the ring by 4 men rolling to the ring while she's on the queen throne. And then the next thing is Nia's like, pink's not my color. And then Tiffany's being sad. Then Pretty Deadly do their dance for about, 15, 20 some seconds. Well, I don't know, maybe it was longer than that. And then Michin interferes. So they didn't just fill time for the sake of filling time. It wasn't like, hey, we have a good comedy idea and we're going to just drag this out. Like there were beats. Oh, and then I missed the bow down for me thing, which Pretty Deadly did. And then Tiffany was like kind of delaying it and not really into it. So yeah, I mean, I thought they hit, there was a rhythm and beat to accomplishing what they wanted to accomplish, and they didn't belabor it. Doesn't mean I can't blame you for going, this isn't why I tune in to watch wrestling, but I also think it was, less than a minute of Pretty Deadly just being goofs. So, and then there's some good wrestling afterwards. Mark, what do you think?
I honestly, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off again.
No, I was throwing you, so you're good.
No, I feel like, ever since they had the Rock Appreciation Night with Rock and Mick Foley, how it was like so big back then, that they keep trying to recapture that, and I just don't think they're ever going to do it.
That was not that was a highly rated segment that dragged on, and people, I think, look back on that more fondly than they ought to. But it wasn't Alexa Bliss. I mean, that was way worse. I mean, you're not wrong, Mark, that this was not that. I mean, I think this was an example of them learning from that and going, let's get in, let's not insert every joke every writer comes up with, and I thought it moved along pretty swiftly.
Yeah. Let's see. The next thing I wanted to really touch base on was me being a huge DIY Tommaso Ciampa fan. From times watching wrestling and everything, if you lose the title, aren't you like almost always get the rematch clause? Isn't that something that they always do? And now DIY had to fight to get the rematch, and then they lose.
So actually, Mark,
yeah,
we talked about that. We talked about that a couple shows ago, and they actually covered it really well. Like, I give WWE credit because it was either last week or the week before, probably last week. Wade Barrett addressed it on commentary, and we talked about it. Like, normally there's a rematch for champions, but it's at the discretion of the Nick Aldis or the authority figures. DIY's reign was so short. It was so short that the belief is they should have to earn their title match by winning a contendership match. And so it was addressed. They basically just They said, yeah,
Okay,
we know
I
people
must have
wonder about
missed
this,
that.
and we have a policy. Yep.
Yeah, that must have slid past me, but it's just like I always feel like DIY gets the short end of the stick all the time. I mean, that's just me. I mean, maybe I'm a homer for being a Ciampa fan, being the Milwaukee guy and everything, but I don't know.
Darrin,
I just feel like they just always, since being on the main roster, like Ciampa and Gargano have always gotten the short end of the stick. What do you guys think?
Darrin, I think DIY are getting on the low end of the push they deserve on the main roster. So I don't think it's an egregious misuse of them, but I think they could have done more to protect them and feature them and establish their personalities and not have them just kind of go to the best of hits from, NXT days. But they've gone through a lot. I mean, they've had a whole career arc as a team and as rivals in NXT. And I think we're seeing a little fatigue from Triple H in terms of it's like they're an established act, but they're older and they've been around and I've done everything with them. Anything we do with them is going to feel like a rerun. So instead of trying to reinvent them or pretend all their history didn't happen, we're just going to kind of throw them on TV and use them as a tag team that visits the main event scene but doesn't stay there. I kind of get it, and I'm okay with it. How about you?
They're slotted about where they should be. They help to enhance other teams. Every once in a while, they get a big win, like they won the tag team titles a few weeks ago, and they made a big deal out of that. So they do get their opportunity to shine. But I mean, they're role players, as you mentioned a couple of moments ago. The roster is very deep, and I mean, who would they unseat for TV time? Obviously, they're very good, very established, but there's other priorities than pushing them, and they're just going to be role players. Again, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and they're not like young upstart wrestlers. They're
that also.
They're like I mean, it's weird to say about Gargano and Ciampa. They're just sort of uncool dads. Like they're not, they're sitting on the ring apron and patting themselves on the back, and it's like you're not like rookies. Like it's just there's things. And Gargano was off to such a rough start with Miz. I think that was a setback. And so I just think the idea was we tried doing different things with Ciampa, that didn't work. We tried doing different things with Gargano, and that didn't work. And so let's just put DIY together and have them just do almost a nostalgia tour of DIY. And I mean, Mark, I'm okay with it. I'm fans of Gargano and Ciampa and DIY. I mean, I am. But I'm just being honest. I think I don't think you can push them much harder than you are. They could have protected them a little bit more before leading into this, world title picture. But it's the tag division, and it's not booked like the singles division with that kind of care. Mark,
yeah, honestly, I don't think I would ever see Ciampa having like a WWE title, but I'd like to maybe see him have a mid-card title run. That's just me. I'm a Ciampa guy. That's just me.
Hey, if Santos Escobar wins the U.S. title and they split up, or Gargano got injured, or they split him up, or whatever, and Ciampa got a U.S. title run, I mean, that'd be fine. I don't like
see how Gargano wouldn't deserve one either. I mean, Johnny Wrestling, for God's sakes, come on.
Yeah. Well, we can't.
Anywho,
this is an AEW. Everyone doesn't get a belt.
Exactly. But the main segment with Roman and Solo, I mean, I was just sitting there clamoring and waiting for Jimmy to come back. Mm-hmm. Like, I was just like, is Jimmy going to come back now? Like, is he going to come back now? And no, we got Jacob coming back, and we already touched base with that on the boot. You guys touched base on that. But in our group chat, we were talking about, like, was he wearing a boot when he came in the ring? Because I honestly, I wasn't looking that close to see. But someone said he was wearing a boot in the ring, and I'm like, I didn't look close enough to actually look.
Oh yeah, he's wearing a boot. Yeah.
Okay, because I didn't see that, but like I think that segment really got the job done. But there was something I seen right before you took my call. There was Ringside News just posted it, where it's unseen footage of Roman Reigns leaving the arena, is how they put it, or something, after the match, and he was kind of like, almost looked like he was walking with a limp. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've seen that.
No, of course I'm doing this podcast. I'm not checking websites.
Oh, okay.
So no, I didn't see it.
No,
he
I
might
don't
be
know if
selling
you've
it, or he
seen
might
that.
not be.
I don't know if you've seen that posted before you went on, or. But
Smackdown
no,
ended
it
and we
looked
went
like
live.
he was
So, no.
walking
Yeah.
with a limp, and I don't know if I don't think it's too severe, but it's still when you see somebody walking with a limp like that, you tend to just sit there and go, especially someone like Roman. You know, that's your guy right now. That's someone that you're expecting to carry the company, and that's your big storyline right now. And you see him walk with a limp, the fans are gonna go, "Is he hurt?"
Well, you want the fans to say, "Is he hurt?" They just did an angle where they triple powerbombed him through a table and beat him up, and it's Roman's job.
I know, but like, is he hurt for real? You know, I'm saying.
Yes. So,
okay, let me reword that. Not the fans are gonna wonder if he's hurt, like me. I don't know the proper way to word that question. The fans are wondering if he's hurt, but the hardcore fans are like, is it a work or is it an actual injury? Does that sound better? How I worded it?
Yeah, no, I was getting to that before he jumped in. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I either he is limping because he's selling the beatdown, or he got a little beat up. He's walking. I think he'll be fine. I'm genuinely not too worried about it. I mean, if he was in a wheelchair, or taken out in an ambulance, I'd be texting people right now to find out. But if he has a little limp, I mean, I think he'll be fine. He's not wrestling. I doubt he'll be wrestling on the Berlin pay-per-view. So I don't know. I'm not. Yeah, I mean. Either people but it very well could be he knows people are watching him and he's like, all right, I'm gonna limp. I want to sell this angle, or maybe he's a little beat up and he should be fine. I mean, I don't want to spend more time on something before I know more about it, but it seems like not a big deal either way. Yeah.
All right. Well, I know you guys want to be short, so I will let you guys get to the next caller. Thank you so much for letting me hop on with you guys, Darrin. It was nice meeting you, sir. Hopefully next time I see you, I'll have my camera on. So, but y'all have a great night.
Take care, Mark. Good talking to you.
Great.
Cool. All right. So let's take an email here. Jason from Connecticut emailed and said, "Good evening, Wade and Darrin. Thanks for continuing to deliver the best wrestling talk shows going today." Thank you, Jason. A decent show tonight with a great ending. The return of the Samoan Wolverine. He's definitely the anchor of Bloodline 2.0. Is there anyone more captivating? R.I.P. Alpha. I was privileged to meet the Wild Samoans as a kid. As a kid backstage at a show in Connecticut in the mid-'80s, which was a larger-than-life experience. Thanks again, guy. Sad news. Lost both Alpha and Sikoa not too far apart. And we got a video package on that. I know there's some nice tributes on social media that we put up a story on PWTorch.com. The Rock speaking about it and his daughter. Triple H, Paul Levesque too. I mean, it's 81. Yeah, I mean it's life. But it's sad, and I thought it was some really nice heartfelt messages, especially from his daughter. I'm probably similar in age to Jason. First time I got WWF syndicated TV in my market, the Samoans were either the tag champs or going after the tag champs. I think Rocky Johnson and Tony Atlas were the champs at the time, or about to beat them for it. But man, I read about them in wrestling magazines for like a year or two before the TV came in my market, maybe 2 or 3 years. And so they were like built up. I saw photos, and they were in the Northeast Company, New York, Madison Square Garden. So they were an iconic tag team of their era, and patriarchs of their large wrestling family. And I attended Vince McMahon trial from jury selection through closing arguments back, whatever that is, going on about 30 years now. And I'm trying to remember if it was Alpha or Sikoa who was sitting in the trial wearing a pro WWE button, and he I need to look this up because I can't remember if it was Alpha or Sikoa, but the story's fine either way. And he was like signaling to the jury during the trial when people were saying bad things about Vince McMahon. He's like, no, not true, not true. And given he was demonstratively trying to influence the jury that wrestlers on the stand were lying about Vince McMahon and steroids, and so he was
a little intimidating.
Well, I mean, it was. I mean, yeah, I guess the jury could. He wasn't like threatening to kill the jury. He was just sort of trying to influence the jury to,
I don't know how he said it.
Yes, it's in the back issue of the Pro Wrestling Torch newsletter. I detailed in one of my articles like what was going on there. So that's one of my fun anecdotes about one of them. I wish I could remember which of the two it was. So anyway, I'm sharing the story either way. But yeah, I mean, they were they just tear apart fish on their promos, just chew like fish heads out. It was gross.
The TNT days.
Yeah, they were all, even before that, on just backstage promos with Mean Gene.
Yeah.
On the syndicated shows, they were a believable act and good at what they did and iconic team for their time. Any memories, Darrin, you have, or anything you want to share on that topic?
They were involved in one of my very first big memories of professional wrestling. I used to watch WWF wrestling out of WOR in New York, and they were the tag team champions, and Tony Atlas and Rocky Johnson beat them for the tag team titles. It was like taped, obviously, on I watched it on a Saturday morning. And I couldn't fathom we had black tag team champions, and I was just going crazy. And I'm sure my family was like, cool. What is this guy doing? But I was just so excited. So yes, they were involved in one of my first favorite wrestling moments. But yeah, just a very feared tag team. It's very sad to see them back to back pass away like that. And the tribute video was very good on a quick turnaround.
Yeah.
They always come through with those videos.
They have a lot of.
It was very well done.
Yeah, they have a lot of interviews in the can from documentaries and stuff that they do, and they splice them together. But yeah, I mean, Mick Foley, Batista. I mean, they just had good sound bites from wrestlers talking about what they meant to them, and yeah, it was well done. Yep. All right. So is there anyone more captivating, he asked, than the Samoan Wolverine, Jacob Fatu? Darrin, he is. I mean, people watched him before he got to WWE, MLW, and otherwise were like, this guy is good. WWE's got to bring him in, and he hasn't disappointed. The people who were really pushing hard for him are going, yeah, see, I told you so.
Yeah, he's taken his opportunity and run with it. I wonder if they're going to eventually switch courses and make him the tribal chief, perhaps, or how they're going to do that, because eventually you would think they almost have to shift the focus to him as opposed to Solo. And that could be a sensitive, I don't know if they're going to turn Solo face. It's certainly not anytime soon, but it's clear that he's the guy and he's really come through. So at some point he might get the necklace, I suppose.
Yep. All right, we'll go to another email, wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com if you're live streaming us, or just consider sending an email in for a future show. Al sent in Ms. and Mizdow photos. I don't know why he did that, but thank you. We'll go to Stephen Cleveland. Watching Tiffany Stratton genuflecting to Queen Nia is truly depressing. When the face turn, all caps, which every arena crowd wants, occurs, and Tiffy time becomes Tiffy the champ time, the pop is going to be huge. P.S. Wade, as both a Browns and Buckeyes fan, it hurt to see J.J. McCarthy go down. Everyone's going to bring that up every show for me as a Viking fan. I just have to be all in on Sam Darnold now. Well, he'll have a good
luck.
He'll have a. If you can't look better throwing to our offensive, our wide receivers. I mean, Justin Jefferson, Adelson. I mean, I'm sorry, he's going to look better than he's ever looked if that offensive line can protect him, because he's got the best receivers he's ever thrown to, and a really good head coach who's a former quarterback coach who has made some journeymen look good. So I still have high hopes that the Vikings will win 7 games this year. So whether it was JJ or Darnold, I don't know that it's going to be a lot different. But now JJ can just have a headset and a clipboard on and watch and learn. And then there won't be a quarterback controversy on week 2 or 3 if the Vikings lose. All right. Tiffany Stratton, Darrin, what do you think about this path they're taking with her? The crowd, as Steve points out, really likes her. They want her to be a babyface. They've been fighting that. It seems like WWE's been cognizant of that. Like, they've pulled back and changed direction on how they've portrayed her and framed her. Now they're clearly heading towards Nia Jax as a heel against Tiffany as a babyface, which could be. And this is where Nia Jax is useful as the type of heel that she is, because if Tiffany beats her, and it's going to be a huge pop, and it's going to help. Nia Jax is credible enough that'll, in the kind of the kayfabe land at WWE, that's a credible win for Tiffany that establishes she's a top star. So I think this is going to work. What do you think of Tiffany as a rising potential centerpiece star for WWE? I mean, obviously she's in the mold of, a certain type of sexy blonde woman that, Kevin Dunn and Vince McMahon tried with one after another over the years. But there does seem to be something different with Prior Lakes, Minnesota's own Tiffany that rises above a lot of them. Yeah.
You're biased. I initially, when they started the angle and it would look like she would have to turn face, I was a little hesitant because I think you could ride out the whole heel thing with Tiffany a little bit longer and with the pink briefcase. And I just thought it was a little bit too early to be turning her, but the fans do seem to be picking up on it. And you can always turn her back later. But yeah, if you want to ride the momentum of this one, fine. I think she'll be a fine centerpiece attraction with the various feuds with the people coming up from NXT and the current roster that they have. I think she'll be fine. I hope they don't drop the ball kind of like they did with the caller alluded to when they finally do the turn and the big pop that's coming. Because like they did with Otis and the Alpha Academy, when they finally, everybody was talking about, when Otis finally turns on him, and it kind of fell flat. And they split off to this whole Wyatt 6 thing, and we never got the feud. We never followed up. I think Otis pushed him once, and that was that. And now he's just kind of there. So I hope we don't have a repeat of that. They're doing much better on their storytelling. That was one, to me, they dropped the ball on. And I hope that they do follow through. If they go ahead and do the split, that they really follow through with it. But we'll see.
Yeah, I'm curious if it'll make sense a month or from now why the Otis Gable thing didn't quite have the breakup punch that I think we were anticipating, and that seemed just ready made to just sort of pop that cork, and it just kind of fizzled. But the Wyatt 6 was part of it, and then adding the Creeds is part of it. So we still, we're not going to have that moment where it's like, yes, fine, like the crowd just explodes. I think that'll happen with Tiffany, and I think there's not a good reason that won't happen with Tiffany. And I think the Wyatt 6 was part of the reason it was a little clunky with Gable and Otis. But hopefully they can fix that up a little bit. All right. Yeah. Right. Let's mark that as answered so I don't go back to it. And we'll go to Kevin in Colorado. Who says, hey, Wade and Darrin, with the arrival of John Tessitore. I had memorized that when I looked him up when he first got. Now I forgot how to pronounce his name, but I saw him do some work and heard him mention his name. But anyway, when John Tessitore is added to the commenting team, what shakeup will happen? On the SummerSlam pre-show, they announced that Tessitore will join Monday Night Raw. They also said Cole would be going to SmackDown. Is there a chance Pat McAfee is going away for college football season? So I don't know. It has crossed my mind to ask around on that, but I just haven't. So I don't know. But I think it's interesting that Cole is going to be on SmackDown because they're making a really big deal out of Netflix. And Cole is the senior announcer. And it seems like Monday Night Raw is slated to become the A show. I mean, it's sort of, I don't know, it's just gone back and forth, but SmackDown's on Broadcast Fox. It has more viewers. It's been the A show for, most of its stretch here on Fox. So Raw going to Netflix is supposed to be a really big deal. And they're putting a green rookie wrestling announcer. I mean, he genuinely likes wrestling a lot more than some of the other hires they had. And that people have high hopes that he'll be good out of the gate, and hopefully they're prepping him more than the last couple people they tried, who, failed on the air before they got better. I mean, Jimmy Smith got better. What was
Adnan Virk?
Yeah, Adnan Virk. He didn't get better, but he didn't last long either. But he saw Demolition 25 years earlier, and that was show and thought it was a blast. And that was his resume.
Well, he said he was a wrestling fan too, and so I just didn't take much stock into this new guy saying it either. So it's like, we'll see. We've heard that before.
Yeah. Well, Adnan just basically said, "Yeah, I went to a WWE house show and thought it was funny and never went again." I mean, that's the vibe he gave off. Tessitore, I think, is really, he was like, he was at WrestleMania this year and just seemed like a super fan who knew the product. So I just say I think there's a good chance he'll be better than Adnan and Jimmy Smith were, and definitely better than Mike Adamle. So, but it is interesting. So I do not know the breakdown. I assume Graves will be with Tessitore's because he's going to help carry him. But maybe they're doing trials, and maybe Wade Barrett has good chemistry with them. Maybe they're going to put Pat McAfee on Raw with him. Because they're out of the sports world. So I don't know. It's interesting. I'm eager to see, but I don't have insider information on that. And it's also possible, because this seems like a little switch up from what was originally planned, that there's moving parts. There's a cliche I'm looking for. Anyway, yeah, it might not be settled.
And that it could be temporary and work in progress.
Yeah. There's moving parts. What's a phrase I'm looking for? I don't know. Anyway,
I never thought I'd say the words "poor Corey Graves," but he might be in a position of having to carry another guy, depending on how this plays out. And I always was hard, really on his case, but I thought he's doing a fine job as a lead play-by-play guy, and I was surprised that they would make that move to someone who's inexperienced, because I thought he's doing an outstanding job as the lead play-by-play. So I was surprised to hear it at all. I don't know why you would make the move. There's nothing wrong with what they have now.
Yeah, there's somebody high up at WWE is friends with him and pushing for him. So that's why. I think it's Nick Khan. I think Nick Khan was pushing for his hire for a while.
Oh, okay.
Don't quote me on that. I previously reported it accurately. I think it was Nick Khan. I don't think it was another executive, but there's like 5% doubt in my head that it was him. But Joe in the chat room says, I believe they said once Netflix comes, he'll switch again. So that might make more sense than that. I mean, that makes a lot of sense if they give him a trial run at first on Raw, so he's not on Fox screwing up on broadcast television, and then they'll evaluate and probably put Cole on Netflix because they're very excited about being on Netflix, not just domestically but internationally. It's something they're very excited about. Brock Benningfield says, I'm strange they don't put the new guy with Cole for training wheels. I mean, Cole, I wouldn't be shocked if he's on headset helping him or working with him off camera. I mean, that Cole is real generous in that way, and he takes pride in grooming other people, getting them better. But it would be redundant. Tessitore is going to be a play-by-play guy, so there's no point. Yeah. I mean, they've done that before with Cole, but it was awkward. And then Adam Kidd says he was great on that putt-putt show on ABC. I watched a clip of that. Not enough to decide if he was good or bad, but he didn't jump out to me as bad. So yeah,
it's a good sign.
I mean, it just it's not a big sample size, but I'm not super worried about him. All right, let's bring Jason from Australia in as another caller here. Jason, welcome to the show. What's in your mind about SmackDown tonight? Good to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks, Wade. Thanks, Darrin. It was a phrasing you're looking for, Wade. It's a fluid situation.
Fluid, yeah. Thank you. That's exactly what I was looking for. Jason, just hang out when I can't think of a word. Just hang out, and you can come on and fix my brain when it doesn't find the word it's looking for. Appreciate it.
Oh, mate, you just send out the signal and I'll be there. Just have a look. Instead of having Hook in that spotlight, you can just have a map of Australia. Don't forget Tasmania, though. Never forget Tasmania. It is part of the country, and I'll be there. But just talking about the announcers, I don't know too much about Joe Tessitore. I mean, I think he's got a great voice, but this illustrates it's not easy to call WWE. I mean, this is not a sport, and you notice that with the announcers, you have to be able to ask questions about the story. Like, there's an art to it. Cole has got it down pat, almost too perfect, to be honest with you. Sometimes it feels like he's 1 second ahead of what's meant to happen, but how's he going to be able to transition to this? You're not just calling a sport. You're asking questions. You've got to know when to jump in, when to jump out, when to let your special comments person come in and ask questions too. I mean, this is going to be very interesting because we've seen so many come and so many fail. It's not easy. This isn't a sport. This is a TV show with sporting elements.
So my initial inclination is to say it's a lot more like a sport than the way you're framing the question. I think the key to being a good wrestling announcer is to approach it with the respect you would a sport, because that's what wrestling fans want. When you think, oh, it's tongue in cheek, it's like when you're, I'll do it. I always go to Jon Stewart when he was a guest GM or celebrity or whatever the hell that disaster was. I changed my opinion on him. And I still can't get over how bad he was in WWE. It was like, hey, let's yuck it up. We're on a pro wrestling show and nobody takes it seriously. And I'm going to make faces. And it was just so, like, the best announcers are the ones who take it seriously as if it's a sport that they believe, and they're immersed in it. Now, it helps if you know the product immersively and you can react naturally to what's happening. And you want an announcer who studies it enough to be able to call it like a really good football, basketball, hockey announcer does, where they just know everything inside and out, so they're not having to think before they talk. But he knows the product well enough from what I hear. I mean, just people around him at WrestleMania were like, yeah, he's a big fan. He's excited and he's professional, but also sort of in awe, not acting like he's above it. And so I think there's a chance he's, like I said, I think there's a chance he's good. Now, to your point, Jason, because I want to give credit to it, even though I push back a little bit, because I think the foundation of a good wrestling announcer is have them just treat it like a sport and almost act like they don't know it's not real. Like, because if you do that, you're almost where you need to be. And it eliminates a lot of things that can kind of turn off wrestling fans if you're, yucking it up or not treating it seriously. But you are definitely, and this is, I think, what you're getting into, a storyteller. You need to, as a play-by-play guy, ask questions of your color commentator. But you know what? The best play-by-play guys in basketball do that. In NFL, I mean, the play-by-play guys ask questions. Like Kevin Harlan was great. He was before he's a national NBA announcer, he was a Timberwolves local radio announcer, and then he moved to TV. He got a start here, and googly oogly oogly, like Tom Gugliotti had all these like catchphrases for players. And I have friends in the Wolves, and he would try to people would slip him a word that would seem slightly inappropriate for television and challenge him to innocently work it into his broadcasts. And so I don't know if he still does that, but I think they did it more on radio because radio weren't as many people listening, but he did it on TV too. So he'd try to, I won't say some of the things that are coming to mind, but he slipped in some not risque is probably cheeky risque words. So he was really fun to listen to. But the thing that I admired about him is he threw to his color commentators, his analysts, so well with genuine questions. He didn't act like a know-it-all. His job was to call the play-by-play, and then he threw with great questions. And Jim Ross has always said the one of the most important things he learned, I think he said learned while working for Vince McMahon as an announcer, that was something that Vince really pushed, is you want to end with questions before you go to a break or when there's a big moment. Yes. So you're challenging the fans to process what happened. You're not telling them something that just sort of sits there. You're asking them to engage in thinking about what happened. So, and they do that going into commercial breaks. It's kind of cliche, but, Corey Graves will be like, oh no, Gargano's down. Can Gargano get up again? You'll hear that. They always ask the question going into the break because they want you, as they go to a break, to be thinking about the question that was just asked of you. So you stick around and are eager to see what happens. So I think WWE has a formula that if you're at base level competent knowledge of WWE and have a good voice and are professional, I think you'll be fine. But it is going to be key. The color guy respecting your color guy, whether it's Corey Graves or Wade Barrett or whomever, McAfee, and throw to them when it's appropriate. Darrin, do you want to jump in on this before we throw back to Jason?
No, I think you covered it pretty well.
Yeah.
So Jason, go ahead and reply to that or change topics, whichever you want.
I agree with what you're saying. But I just don't think this is easy. I mean, when you said about Jim Ross asking questions, there's a famous one where people go to, why Triple H? Tell me why. When Triple H attacked Austin, sort of half turned heel on him because he was already heel or whatever. But Jim Ross did that a lot in his commentating, always, like you said, asking questions of the audience. When I listened to Jim Cornette a bit on commentary, he did that too. And that, to me, I think that's a great thing because you want the audience thinking about what's going on, what are the ramifications, and what are the different scenarios. So, if it was easy, make no mistake about it, they would have had other commentators in there to help bail out Cole, if you like. But Cole has become so good at it, being there every week for the past 27 years, that he knows the formula down pat. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting with this Joe Tessitore. I just wanted to touch on Solo. I think, look, obviously, I think he's done really well in this role. He's had to change because he was the hard-nosed enforcer before, where he was a badass, and now he's had to transition into this new role. And I think what's hurt him is that we just haven't seen him pick up any victories on TV. So, next week, I would like him to talk about how he feels like he's been constantly disrespected, and put him in the ring with a Johnny Gargano and have him get a victory over Johnny Gargano. Gargano's not going to lose not going to lose anything. You've got the weight difference. Just get Solo getting a victory on TV so we can see him actually pin someone in a one-on-one match. I think that's been lacking for him. And in relation to Jacob Fatu, I don't ever see him being a tribal chief, because to me, he reminds me of a Joe Pesci-like character in a mafia movie, where he's just he's the crazy guy who you want on your team, but he could do anything at any time, but he could never be the boss because he's just too crazy. But he's loyal and he'll do whatever's required of him. So that's how I see Jacob Fatu, and that's why he's the interesting one. But he'll never be the boss, but he's the nutcase, and he'll do whatever it takes, even if he has to hurt himself to do that.
For people who are fans of the Shield TV series, one of my favorite prestige TV shows that I think was on FX originally with Michael Chiklis as Vic Mackey. I think Shane Vandrell, who was played by Walton Goggins, really good actor, who's done a lot of good stuff. He's sort of the Shane Vandrell Jacob Fatu could be. People who watch the Shield are nodding along to me on this one. The guy who's going to do something crazy, but you wouldn't trust him to be a leader. But he thinks he sort of wants to occasionally take the lead, and it messes things up. Spoiler alert. So that's a great show, and man, Michael Chiklis and Goggins were amazing. Two of my favorite characters on TV. So anyway, I'm just throwing another example out there, but I think that's really good, Jason. I don't think I elaborated enough on that when it was brought up, but I don't think Jacob Fatu is a tribal chief type of guy. He's going to be the praised the wild-eyed crazy guy, but not someone who's actually articulating strategy. He just wants to beat people up.
Yeah, and that, to me, that's about it, really. I don't really have much more to add to the show. The Kevin Owens thing, I think what I've noticed with Triple H's booking style is obviously he's slow. He puts out things in there. So obviously he's teasing Tiffany against Nia Jax. So, Nia asking her to bow down. Okay, we're teasing that. So that's going to be played out a little bit more. And with Kevin Owens, I get the sense they're just owning their booking. So, and that's what Kevin Owens tends to do as a character. He's the type of character which will just talk about, almost break the fourth wall in a sense, and just talk about what he believes everyone is thinking. So to go on and on about his win-loss record, how he doesn't deserve it or whatever. So that's interesting. Last week I thought it came across a little bit condescending towards him, that he was sort of gifted this title match. So I'm going to be interested to see how they play into this. So I'm not overly excited about it, but I'm willing to give him a bit of, a little bit of leeway here and see where they go with it. But besides that, guys, don't really have much more to talk about. I thought two great matches with the Street Profits and obviously with DIY. Interesting to see what happens with the Street Profits moving forward. I don't see them winning the tag titles. So what happens to Dawkins and forward from there? And obviously Andrade and Carmelo Hayes, a 2-1.
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to go to a best of 5? Are we going to go to a best of 7? But either way, what we're seeing is that when we put two guys in the ring like this, who can obviously go in the ring, and I mentioned this last week, Andrade is getting over. Carmelo Hayes is getting over. Carmelo, obviously, I think more suited towards a babyface role, because the heel character, you can sort of seeing he's kind of putting it on a little bit more. I think fans will get more behind him as a babyface, but they're getting time in the ring to actually get over, and that's a good thing. So I'm intrigued to see where they go from there. Kind of like that best of 7 series we saw in WCW with like Benoit and Booker T, but obviously that did a lot for them. Hopefully this can do a lot for Andrade and Carmelo, maybe a best of 7 or something like that, and then push them a little bit higher.
All right, Jason, thank you. Darrin, go ahead and respond. I see you reacting to the things. So fill us in on the inner thoughts of Darrin Lilly.
I thought it was a fine match, and the series has been fine with Carmelo and Andrade. But after this is over, I just keep thinking what's going to happen to both of them, because I just don't think they had plans for Andrade. I just don't see it. And Carmelo is someone they brought up, and they've had a handful of these people that they brought up from NXT and didn't really have plans for them once they brought them up to the main roster, which is why it's always suggested that you have some plans set in advance for when you do bring people up. And it's kind of floundering. I don't know if that might be too strong of a word, but I mean, he certainly leveled off from his NXT feud that he was having with Trick and kind of come back down to earth, I would say. And there's something to be said about starting them off slow and then moving them on to something, but I just don't see it at this point. I'm not saying that it's over, but I don't think it looks good for either of them, but they've impressed in the ring, so maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't see them as being at world title level, but maybe they could challenge for the Intercontinental or something like that. But it's going to be interesting to see once this feud is over, this series, which I presume they're going to have more, maybe going to best of 7 or whatever, what happens to them after that. And if going back to what Jason was saying about the Kevin Owens thing, they were having a big dilemma about the win-loss record. He doesn't have the best win-loss record.
Yeah.
I thought that they needed to point out maybe kind of how they do in the football rankings, the strength of competition. He's been going up against the top level people and he's been hanging in there. Usually they cheat to win, and they never pointed that aspect of it out. So sure, he deserves a title shot because he's almost beat the top people and they've had to cheat to win, but they never pointed that part of it out.
I thought Kevin was a little annoying tonight. By the way, I thought it I normally
in the segment with Waller.
Yeah. It was just like I don't know. It just I started to find myself
a little bit extra.
Yeah. Like it's just like I've lost all my matches. I even might have lost to you. I'm not sure that it gets much worse than that. You think you'll easily beat me? We'll go out there and prove you're right. I'm a loser. I'm a moron. It was just like I don't know. Yeah, it was extra. It was a little much for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's no big deal. I mean, Kevin Owens is great, but
sure, but yeah, usually he hits him out of the park. But yes, that was a misstep, definitely.
Yeah. The idea that he doesn't deserve a title shot but is getting it is still kind of like weird. I mean, the argument, well, you know, it's if Reigns is going to get a rematch, then I'll say yes, I'll take it. And Reigns cheated to keep his title, and I've lost a lot, but I was Cody's friend, so and I was there for him, so now I'm going to get a title shot. I mean, I'm honestly not the positive is you're acknowledging the reality that he doesn't deserve it. So if you're committed to doing a KO match against Cody, I guess you're better off hanging a lantern on, shining a light on the idea that, yeah, he doesn't deserve it, as opposed to, acting like wrestling fans won't notice he doesn't deserve it, in a way that's better. And we'll see if this takes a route where it makes sense, like Brock Benningfield in the chat says, I keep thinking they're going to turn KO full heel.
Maybe.
And maybe, although as Dan pointed out, KO flipping back and forth is annoying. Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
Sorry to butt in. It's like you say, two wrongs don't make a right. Just because with Roman, right, the way he went about things in our chaos. Well, hang on, Roman doesn't deserve it. So, I don't deserve it also, but I deserve it more than Roman, even though he doesn't. Yeah. So
that's the thing. Yeah,
exactly. So this is one of those things. And I think they try to answer the question by saying, well, look, the crowd thinks you deserve it. Last week they pointed to the people, and Cody says, well, if the crowd thinks so, and the crowd don't really care about wins and losses. So if they feel like you deserve it, it doesn't matter what the stats show, because the feelings are more important than the win-loss record. So if the crowd's feeling it, then you deserve it, KO. So it is a bit, this hasn't been the strongest feud. However, let me ask you this, guys. If it ends up that KO snaps and does turn heel, and it's him the one that does it, and not, as some speculated, might have been Randy Orton, are you okay with that? So does the ends justify the means? That we're going to get a KO, a Kevin Owens heel turn, or is it going to be a little bit too much like AJ Styles, which we've already seen? And how many people are turning on Cody? I mean, how do you balance all that out?
I would say it's not ends justifies the means. My cliche would be all's well that ends well. I think there's a difference between the two. So it doesn't justify, it doesn't offset the negative of giving a title shot when the whole story arc of him getting a title shot is Cody gifted it to him, and Nick Aldis is so bad at his job he didn't have a list of people who actually had winning records to offer up so he could easily accept Kevin's resistance to getting a title shot that Kevin Owens clearly indicated he didn't deserve. I just think the storyline is clunky, but I don't know how you tell it better when you have somebody with a record that is not deserving of a world title shot getting one. I mean, you can ignore it, hope fans don't notice or take the heat, or you can draw attention to it, which they have, but it doesn't justify it in the end. I mean, I think even if it leads to something productive, I would just say all's well that ends well, in the sense that it wasn't good, it's not really justified, but at least we're in a good spot afterwards. And it's not a WrestleMania main event, I mean, there's some storyline they're telling here, and it's a way to tell the story. I guess I just would have rather had them plan 4 months ago and give Kevin Owens some wins and have Cody say, KO, I know, you've been there for me, I've been there for you. You might think that I would think you're not on the list of people who would go after my title, but I want to let you know you have permission to go after my title. I think you've been great lately. You've been winning a lot of matches, and I want to prove I'm the best. And I can't do that if my friends, who are also great, don't step up and try to take this title from me. So you've been winning, I've been winning. Let's test each other. Like, I would have rather had that be the story. That makes more sense in a sports like way. And then Nick Aldis can just endorse it and go, well, I thought maybe KO didn't want to go after you, Cody, because he's friends, but you made the case and KO's up for it. So let's book it. Darren?
Yeah. All you needed to do was have 2 or 3 TV wins, and they'll be fresh in fans' minds. Like, yeah, he is on a winning streak. He sure does deserve that. Yeah. And you would have resolved the issue. But yeah, I appreciate them pointing out, if you had to do it, the win-loss record, but I don't think it's a good idea to just keep dwelling on that and making that the centerpiece of this, I guess we'd call a mini feud, because I think it's going to conclude at Bash in Berlin. I don't see it going much further than that. I just don't think it's a good idea to base the whole feud around that.
What do you think the odds are Kevin Owens turns heel in this? Because, I mean, Kevin's turned so much, people just think that's going to happen. They might, but I don't think... It doesn't seem like obvious to me. I wouldn't rule it out because it's Kevin Owens and I could see it happening. But I think they're trying to make you think maybe that'll happen, but it doesn't.
Right. I think he's more beneficial keeping him as a baby face. I hope they don't turn him, because he's somebody that's going back and forth too much, as the comment said earlier. It's just too much going back and forth. And plus the people are really behind him. So I think it's just a little stopgap. They need some issue for Bash in Berlin, and I think that'll be it, hopefully.
Yeah.
The only way I could
Jason,
see...
thanks. Oh, yeah, jump in.
Oh, sorry.
Yep,
I was just going to say, the only way I could see Kevin turning heel is that if Cody is too accepting of, say, Roman, and that Kevin has put his whole body on the line for the past 4 years against the bloodline. He's taking a battering. Mm-hmm. He's lost numerous world title matches, really not clean. He's been turned on. He's had everything turned against him. And for people to just wipe it under the carpet, I know Drew had that issue with Jey Uso, but actually Kevin Owens for the past number of years has had more of this. So that's the only way that he would snap that. After all this, going through everything, it's just taken a toll of him. Then for everything to be wiped under the carpet, and Roman is just accepted. That could be a really justifiable heel turn, and that could make Kevin snap. So if they tell that story, I'm happy to get to that spot, because that's a story worth telling, and you've got a lot behind it that you can back it up with.
What do you think, Darren?
That's an intriguing scenario. I mean, if they did it that way, I wouldn't have a problem with it.
Yep. Cool. Jason, thanks. Good talking to you. We'll talk to you soon, I'm sure.
See ya.
Yep, see ya. All right, so we got Ashley, who attended tonight, Darren, in Orlando. Cool. So let's bring Ashley on as an on-site correspondent. Ashley, welcome. Good to see you and talk to you.
Hello. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can. Is it raining, or I hear a little bit of I don't know, some background noise, but
it's windy out here.
Oh, that's fine.
I was on my way back to the parking garage, but I figured that may be a little worse, like background noise for you guys. So
yeah, you're good. So you mentioned in the chat that the crowd is super hot all night. Compare this to other WWE shows you've been to, like what, and talk about who was most over and what engaged the crowd the most.
Yeah, so I feel like I'm officially meeting you guys face to face. So hello.
I know, this
and
is
sorry,
great.
I feel so like I look crazy right now. Sorry, but hey Darrin, it's great to officially like meet you face to face. I've listened to you a lot, especially on the Raw post show. So it's cool to see you face to face.
Nice to talk to you.
Yes, thank you. But yeah, it was crazy. I don't know if it's just the momentum WWE has been on, but tonight's show, I was a little surprised with how over everything was, even from the beginning. Like, before the show officially went live, when they were setting up the stuff for Nia Jax celebration, Tiffany came out, Pretty Deadly came out, and even Pretty Deadly got a pretty decent reaction. Kind of expected that with NXT and everything, not too far from here. It's actually like 15 minutes down the road. But yeah, even from jump, it was kind of surprising to see a Michin or Mia Yim, depending on if Todd's listening or not, seeing her interfere. Wasn't expecting that. I honestly, and I'm sorry I missed the first half of your guys' show. Definitely go back and listen. But when they said, I think Nia Jax said something like "bow down" or something, I was expecting Charlotte. I was like, oh shoot, here we go. But that's just me. I'm not sure of her timetable, but I follow her on Twitter or whatever, and she seems like she's ready to go. So but from that, just from the jump, that kind of caught my attention, just how hot everyone was. And then Andrade and Carmelo Hayes, man, that I knew once when we saw Andrade and then Melo came out, I was like, oh, this is gonna be a banger. But at that I think for me, what I enjoyed the most was the post-match like beatdown. It just seemed more real to me. Like, it just seemed kind of natural, like Melo was bragging, Andrade was pissed that he lost, and at first he was just trying to shrug it off, be like, yeah, whatever, I lost, fine. But Melo wouldn't leave him alone. He kept pushing and pushing, and to me it was a natural reaction from Andrade. Like, I'm not trying to watch my words, but yeah, like, back off, man.
Totally. It felt more real than those situations usually do. Pro wrestling.
Yeah. So I was just really impressed by that. Again, I don't know if I was just biased being there, but I was impressed by that. But man, like, and I'm gonna be that person. I'm not a fan of the OTC initials. A friend of mine, when I first saw the shirt, my brain thought over the counter. And I know it's the stupidest thing. It's the stupidest thing, but I can't get it out of my head now. And the whole night, everyone is chanting OTC, and I'm just like, I haven't been into that yet. But oh my gosh, like, obviously I've listened to you for a while now, and you were one of the first ones to say, the second Roman turns heel, he's gonna end up being the biggest babyface. And my goodness, like. From and I went to WrestleMania as well, being in the Philly crowd and hearing Philly chant "We want Roman," I was like, okay, it's recency bias, like whatever. But even for Philly, I was like, this is pretty shocking. But seeing it carry over to Orlando it's something special, man. It's you feel his presence. You feel his presence there.
What do you think of the music? How did that work for or against the type of crowd because it kind of has a slow build and then kind of hits a crescendo?
I think the boom, like the first couple like notes in the music, it kind of sets you up, and it's like, oh, and it gives the fans a moment to rise and get ready, and just kind of gives them that split second, like, here we go, to get your cameras ready, your fingers up. And man, like, I took a couple videos, literally it had to be, if not completely sold out, like pretty close, because all the way up to the rafters, like everyone had the fingers up, like it was a beautiful sight, man. Roman, he's, especially hearing with the passing of his uncle earlier in the day, it's just, it was tough. And not to jump ahead, but Jey Uso actually ended up coming out in the for one of the dark matches, and he gave a little speech afterwards, just pretty much thanking everyone and saying how emotional today was for him and his family. And he actually referenced he didn't say the bloodline, but he said, and for me and the rest of my family, being able to come out here and be in the middle of the ring and perform for you guys, it's really like comforting to them in so many words. Good. So he was just like, from the bottom of my heart, thank you all. And he passed it over to Damian Priest, who was there. And I think that's what I put in my comment as well. Damian Priest, man, that guy, I'm kind of bummed they took the title off of him. I'm a huge Gunther fan, back to Walter, but I feel like they could have gotten away with holding on a little bit longer, maybe to Bash in Berlin. But that's just me being a fan of Damian. Back to his Punishment Martinez days too. I remember seeing him in Ring of Honor. I was just like, man, there's something about this guy, man. Like, and I'm just happy for him. But he was super over. He was actually the babyface that sent everyone home happy. And I went to the restroom after the dark matches, came back, and he was still making the rounds, like signing autographs. He made it all the way back to the like pretty much the main stage, and there's this one little kid that was like waving his arm, and he ran all the way back down to kind of go greet him. So it was cool. Yeah,
That's cool.
Little things like that I think will make a big difference. Yeah.
You know, when Roman was putting the tribal chief necklace back on, and he was taking like these deep breaths and the exhales, and I was immersed in the storyline, which is good. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking too, is this kind of the emotional weight of losing, you know, Alpha and Sika in a short span of time? And was there some of that going on with him? Like, okay, I want to sell this storyline. What I'm doing isn't inconsistent with it. But it was sort of like the weight of the emotions also seemed to be part of that moment. It felt a little more heavy than just I'm the tribal chief again. And I wonder, not in a way that took away from the angle, but it jumped out to me. And then obviously he was just waiting to get super kicked by Jacob Fatu too. What was a pop like for Jacob Fatu, and what was it like seeing him do his thing in person?
Oh man, I was surprised. They got me. I was recording, right? And then I looked up. I was so pissed too. The second I looked up to the screen to see Roman's face is when Jacob comes in and super kicks. I'm like, of course, my luck. But yeah, man. I don't know. Do you know, Wade? And I may have missed it. Is that legit? Like, is his foot like really? I mean, I would assume not broken, but like messed up, or if not, like, he's doing a great job.
I've said I never got a straight answer from anyone I asked in WWE, so it felt like they're being kind of intentionally a little coy about it. My hunch is that there was a legit injury, but it wasn't that bad, and they just didn't want people focusing on it, so they just didn't talk about it. But then he came out in the walking boot, and so basically it means he can put weight on it, he can move around, but they're still protecting it because it's not quite healed yet. I think it's a legit injury, but it's not serious.
Well, I mean, God bless him, because whatever pain he's in, you couldn't tell tonight, because I don't know if it's the adrenaline or just, you know, the emotions running wild, probably a combination of everything, but he's a star. Like, the second he came out, everyone in my section was like, oh, you know what, like, he's the real deal. And even leaving, like, we actually saw, well, it's a little ways down the street now, but near the parking garage where all the wrestlers were leaving, Solo, Tama Tonga, and I think one more member of the bloodline. I didn't see the other two, but I definitely saw Solo and Tama came out. They, you know, completely no-sold us on, just like, and Solo actually gave us like a face like towards the end, which is kind of cool. But people were like, you know, F you Solo, like, you know, like, so it's, people are buying into it for sure. But that's what people are like, where's Jacob? So yeah, Jake, he's a star in the making too. Like, kind of feel for Solo, you know, like before Jacob Fatu was probably in WWE, like he was, you know, getting polished, but I think us as fans, we're in for a treat when we eventually get to Solo and Jacob Fatu, because I think that's going to be fun.
Yeah, Jacob's the guy who, if you get mad at someone on the road and you honk and you're like riding their tail and you're like, oh, why did you cut me off? And I'm going to cut you off. And then all of a sudden you look over and it's him and you're like, crap. And you're like, you turn and run away. Like, he's that kind of person.
Into the median. Yeah, you go.
Yes. Yep. Darrin, do you have a question for Ashley?
Yeah. Could you compare the crowd reactions from when Cody came out to when Roman came out? I know it was different circumstances, but who got the better reaction? If you could tell.
I'm so glad you brought Cody up. I'm so glad, because I'm a big Cody fan, obviously. I was about to be a little salty, you know, if we didn't get any Cody tonight, but he wasn't advertised, so I wasn't going to be that one to be like, oh, why didn't we get him if he's not even advertised? Totally get it. However, there was a specific Orlando Nightmare t-shirt that they were selling in the Couriers, and they promoted it like halfway through the show. So I'm like, okay, you better not have an Orlando Nightmare t-shirt and not have this guy come out here, because then they're promoting a show that's in Lakeland, which is about 20 minutes from here for tomorrow. That's a super show, so that he's going to be at, defending the title against, oh my gosh, who was it against? I forget, but it'll come back to me. It's, you know who's going to win. But it was kind of like a surprise, because we didn't think we were going to get him. So it was like oh wow, like that. But it wasn't long enough to really, like, once you realize it was him, you're like, yay, like, you know, whatever. He's doing his thing, and then it's kind of over with. So
yeah,
it was kind of what you
got. An
got.
abbreviated entrance.
Yeah, and I kind of actually expected him to come back out after like the show ended airing, to do his full entrance, so people can at least sing the song, because I don't know when it went off TV, but right after Kevin handed him the title and they kind of like did their thing and Kevin walked off, the music started, but then it cut off. And then people started booing and Cody was like, I know, I'm sorry. And then he like was rushed to the back. But yeah.
Okay.
Steven Adornato in the chat said, one thing is clear after tonight, Cody is the number 2 babyface now.
Yeah.
Ashley, do you think Cody's the number 2 babyface after tonight?
Yeah,
Behind
man.
Reigns.
It hurts my heart, but yeah, bro, yeah.
Yeah.
He's right,
Yeah.
yeah. And you know, like it's not even a bad thing. Like, you know, like if I'm Cody,
Yeah.
I'm good with it. Like you want to be the quarterback, but sometimes the quarterback still isn't the most popular, you know?
And I look at it more as you just got like an NBA analogy. You got a great like small forward who's a top scorer, but you got a great assist leader, point guard who distributes and scores too and plays defense. I mean, it's just like there's room for 2 like really big stars and on a brand. But I mean, it's going to come to a head at some point. I mean, you know, people are going to, you know, choose sides, or I mean, it's hard to coexist long term. So we'll see how they deal with it. You don't want Cody. It's not. I use the basketball analogy, but I'll push back against it in a way because like it's not a team. Cody and Reigns aren't. It's not a team sport. They are going after singles top main event at WrestleMania Night 2 status in a non-kayfabe sense, and in a kayfabe sense, holding the world title. They're not passing to each other and helping each other win a game collectively. So I just storyline wise, it's something they have to deal with, or they got to split them up and put one on Raw and one on SmackDown, which also would surprise me if they don't want to accelerate that. How did the crowd react to that opening segment with Nia and Tiffany? Like, talk about the dynamic there, and if people were into it or think rolling their eyes, think it's kind of corny and stupid.
No, I think they were playing along with Pretty Deadly because it's kind of like, all right, you know, it's cute, you know, do your thing. But when Nia said, when Nia wanted Tiffany to bow down, people were like, oh, like what? And people were like, no, like people were like really hoping, like, no, dude, no. So that was an interesting twist, you know, and I liked that Nia was saying that, you know, that's not her vibe, that's not her style, because it's not. Like when they were bringing out the balloons and the unicorns, I'm like, what the hell are we doing? I'm sorry, what are we doing? Like unicorns for Nia? And then I like that they you know, made sense. It's not Nia's style, it's Tiffy's style. I love the briefcase is so ridiculous, but I love the strap. It's just this most ridiculous thing, but it fits her. Like she makes it work. But yeah, it's going to be very easy for Tiffany to become the face out of all this. And I will be the solo person on the hill. I am a Nia Jax fan. Yes, she hasn't always been the cleanest, but especially on this latest run, even before she left, I have always been a fan. I'm not going to say I've been her number 1 fan, but dude, like I appreciate Nia. I think she brings a lot to the table. I think she gets a lot of hate. So yeah. I'm just putting that out there. I'll if Nia, you're listening to this, you have a fan in me, girl.
You know, I took heat. I defended her hiring. I like when
did.
Paul Levesque brought her
and
back.
I was agreeing. I was agreeing with you.
Yep.
You didn't hear me though.
Yep. Well, I could sense it. I like not Neon 1984 from Reddit says I would listen to a Wade, Darrin, Ashley podcast. You are. You don't have to imagine it. We are doing a podcast right now together. But that's I appreciate it. And Adam Kidd says Nia is where is it? There it is. Nia is awesome.
I agree, Adam.
She's had a good run. I think she's playing her role well. Whenever I hear sirens now, I look around for my dog because it's so adorable. When my dog hears a siren, he starts howling, and he like is pitch perfect, and he just absolutely imitates the siren sound, and just starts howling like he's trying to get his pack back together again. So when I hear siren sound, I just wait for my dog to start howling. So what was I going to say when the siren distracted me?
You're talking about Nia?
Oh, no, I wanted to shift now to Street Profits and DIY. How did the crowd take sides in that in a definitive way, or are they just into the action? Talk about that.
So a little bit of both. When the Street Profits came out, their pop wasn't as big as I've heard it before. So I was a little kind of not concerned, but just like it was just kind of interesting to me. But as the match progressed, and again, being in this part of Florida, NXT is not far, so DIY definitely has their roots here. So I think that
Well, so do
definitely
the
helped
Street
them out.
Profits. I mean, they're
True.
driving
Yeah,
around
very true.
doing
Very
parades
true.
with fans, whatever
Very
that was
true.
back in the day. Yeah.
Yes, true, touche. But yeah, no, Street Profits, like towards the end, like they definitely had. It was more towards, I would say, not by much, maybe 60-40 ish, maybe a little bit higher. But Street Profits definitely had the edge. But gosh, man, like there's just still something. Oh, there's a WWE truck leaving. There's just still something about Montez Ford that I just think it's just a single star in the making. And I just envision, I've been saying this for years, like him and Bianca is just a power couple. Like just having them, just like and that glove he wears, that it reminds me of that like Michael Jackson glove, like from back in the day. Like it's just there's just something about it, man. Whenever I see it, like I just picture Bianca standing beside him and just like I just see them glowing. It's just I don't know. Like I hope they pull the trigger soon. And a lot of maybe not because I don't want anything to happen to Angelo Dawkins because he got a good reaction tonight too. That one save he made towards the end or the later part of the match. I forget what DIY hit, but we thought that was the end, and he made the save, and there was actually like a brief Hawkins chant going. So not to discredit him because he's definitely improved a lot too and gotten in incredible shape. So, but man, just something about Tez, man. Even just seeing it in the entrance, just the way like he engages with the fans and just how they're just so reactive to him. Like it's just something different. But I don't know. I can't wait to see what he ends up doing in the future, solo wise.
And then my just kind of final topic is just anything on Grayson Waller and Austin Theory and how did they seem into it? Like, oh, this is going to be the turn, or did they tune out?
It just kind of was what it was. Grayson Waller though, like I just see the Miz all in him. Like they got something in Grayson Waller. I feel like long term as well. Maybe not a heavyweight champion-ish type of like actually becoming champion or main eventing WrestleMania, whether or not it's a good main event or not. Sorry, but yeah, like it was what it was. I think it was a fun excuse for the fans to chant for KO. We saw him leaving in the parking garage with his family. He's very nice guy. Couldn't take pictures because there was a grate right in between us. But yeah, it was just an excuse. I feel like to get them both on the show, and I think in a sense to get Cody on the show as well with having Kevin Owens out there as the excuse. But yeah, nothing. Just kind of what you would expect for Grayson and for Austin Theory. But I'm sorry not to cut you off, but I'm right there with you, Wade. I feel Austin Theory is going to be champion one day, my friend. You and me will sit in the boat together.
It won't just be us. I hear all the time from people who are, I mean, not like he's going to have a John Cena run or change the industry like Steve Austin, but that he's going to be in a better place than he is now, and
he will
maybe have a
I believe it.
There's quite a few. We have quite a few. We have more Austin Theory fans than not. I think on around here. I don't know. Todd will want empirical evidence for that because it's not right? But we're not alone. I'll put it that way. Naomi and Davenport. I meant to ask about that. Sorry. How they hold the crowd interest and how that goes.
Wow. Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. You're great at your job, Wade. Blair Davenport, totally not expecting her to win. Like, and I think I kind of felt bad because Naomi got a great response a good response at first, and then once they said from Orlando, she got the oh wow that she's from Orlando, like oh let's go, like that extra boost of confidence. But yeah, I was completely surprised that Blair Davenport won. I was kind of happy about it. It was one of those where you kind of you kind of expect, and I don't think it hurt Naomi at all. To be honest with you, I think it was a step in the right direction. I like what they're doing with Mia Yim, and they're elevating her a bit, or at least trying to. They're trying to, shine up Blair Davenport. So it's what you need to do, in my opinion, to build a division. So especially depending on when Charlotte comes back, you need something for Nia to do in the meantime. But yeah.
Cool. Darrin, anything else you want to ask Ashley before I let her go?
Yeah, but besides the Cody t-shirt, was there any other market specific merchandise that you saw?
I don't think market specific. They had, and again, I know I said this last time, but night and day, and I hate to be this person, I'm not gonna, but it's night and day. It's night and day, like the accessibility of the merch stands, like and I don't know if it's just how big of a machine manufacturing wise WWE is, and maybe I don't know, but it's just your line is still you still have a long line at each merch table, but there's multiple merch tables. Like it's just again night and day. But no, the only market specific I think it was the Orlando Nightmare one for Cody, and it was just his Nightmare font and then just the American his logo. So pretty much just the same thing, just different font and different colors. But they did have like a Cody Rhodes weight belt that he signed, a few things like that were like autographed, but nothing crazy.
Cool.
But they had CM Punk merch there. People were actually surprised or were disappointed no Drew McIntyre merch. So Drew's getting some love.
I mean, yeah, he's got more than a cult following for how effectively wittily caustic he's been towards Punk. A little too effective, perhaps. By the way, Dominic Mano says, I believe in Theory. Joe Schmo says, Austin Theory's been growing on me. And Brock Beddingfield says, Theory is all right. I think it's potential to get a lot of heat if he's handled properly. So look at all these Austin Theory fans.
Look at them. Yes, my people.
Ashley, thank you so much for joining us. It's great that you were able to share details. Anything else you want to share before you go? Anything we didn't ask you about?
No, I can't wait to go back and listen to what you guys already talked about. But thank you so much for having me. It was really cool.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
Call in again, even when you're not on site.
I will. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks. All right, that was fun. It's one. This is. I remember in the message board days, like you'd get to know people with their little nickname handles on like the PWTorch VIP forum and wherever you know you were, and then people like, oh, share a picture, and it was before even kind of predating camera phones and being easy to. It's like weird to think about that, but it's kind of a chore to put your photo online and
upload
you have to scan it in, upload. It's just what like I'm talking, I don't know, 2003, 2001 era, whatever. And so, but then people would, I'll put up some photos. Here's some photos I scanned. And it's like, oh, that's what you look like. And like when we do audio for so many years and we have regulars, it's been really fun to get to know what people look like, or even if you know what they look like, what their mannerisms are, and they're more animated and stuff. So, we get that a lot. And Lady B wants,
added a whole new element to it. Yeah, and it's so much fun.
Yep. And Lady B's like, Ashley, share your socials. I'll follow you. I feel like we get to know people at a different level at doing this. Okay. I starred a couple comments. I mentioned Cody's number 2. WWE's in a good place. Derek Hubbard said, WWE's in a good place right now when the momentum is in your favor. There's no reason to hotshot matches or rush through angles. Mr. Privilege was never a WWF champ. Should he have been? That's a topic for another day, but no, he shouldn't have been. It just, I mean, there was I'm a huge Kurt. Yeah, there was a time. I mean, I'm a huge Kurt Hennig fan. He was my favorite wrestler, like right before I started doing the Torch. He was a hometown guy.
Sure.
The very first wrestling event I went to, he wrestled Adrian Adonis, and if he lasted 10 minutes, then his dad, Larry the Axe Hennig, got to beat up Adrian Adonis afterwards, and Kurt lasted 10 minutes, but he was like a rookie who, if he lasts 10 minutes, what are the odds? And he did. And that was the very first live event I went to. He was like never nice to me, but I still liked him. I was, around him at Champ's Sports Bar when he would do the #1 sports talk show in town. And I was trying to tell him, hey, I'm doing this newsletter and I enjoy your work. And he's like, just gave me a death stare and said, go away. That was the era and that was him. But I mean, nevertheless, he was just great. But yeah, just it wasn't the right time for him to be champ. I mean, if you look at WWF history at that time, it's not like this idea. And people who grew up watching the Attitude Era and then the years afterwards, a few years afterwards, they think, oh, if you're good, you get a world title run. And it's like, that's not the way it was. It just wasn't like that until the Attitude Era, when there was a whole breakdown of the discipline. It's like if somebody took over the NFL and just go, let's do a Super Bowl 4 times a year. Like, no, it's got to be once a year. That's what makes it special. But it'll draw ratings, and it would for like 2-3 years until the Super Bowl meant 1/4 or less of what it ever meant. And that's what happened. You had this whole undisciplined breakdown of bookers who just hot-shotted because they felt they had to because of the competition. But it was bad. But no, not everybody who was really good got a world title reign. That wasn't the way things worked, and nor should it. And you can have a very, very more than respectable Hall of Fame career, but not have a run as a world champion. That's just not how wrestling worked most of pro wrestling's history. Derek said, I'll throw this up on the screen. I would not say they dropped the ball on Otis and it was a failure. Otis is getting the biggest reactions of his career. So I don't think you were saying it was a failure as much as you're saying we just don't have that moment that felt satisfying. Not that Otis is in a terrible spot right now.
I think he's back where he was, but
well, fair, yeah. I mean, it's probably true. But maybe that was his destiny, even if he had that moment with Gable. That was more satisfying. He might still be where he was. Dan said the boxing guy was good. Moro, he took it serious. Moro Ronaldo, he's an MMA guy. He took it serious. He was a super fan. I mean, just like mega super fan. He was good. I don't know if I need to. Oh, and Kevin Toms just said, because I brought up the Vince McMahon trial, and he said that Patrick and Alex just covered the steroid trial on the 90s Past cast. So if people want to hear what I wrote and their thoughts on my coverage of that was a fascinating month of my life, or 3 weeks, and then writing about it before and after. I went to New York, covered the trial for 2 weeks, I think after 2 weeks, and I flew, because this is like pre-internet. So then I flew back from New York back to Minneapolis, St. Paul, did a double issue of the Pro Wrestling Torch newsletter. The second I got off the flight, went home, typed nonstop for 2 days, got on the airplane and got a newsletter done. And then, because it was the only way people knew what was happening. And I got on an airplane and went back to the trial afterwards and covered the last week of it. And so that
I lived through this because I was reading it in college.
Oh, sweet.
So I would have that sent to me. Yes.
Yep. So people can go read that issue if you're a full VIP member. There it is. PWTorch.com/GoVIP. There's I mean, more than 3.5 decades I've been doing this, and my body of work is and the whole team, just some great writing and house show reports and my long form Torch Talk interviews with some of Pro Wrestling's biggest names before everyone had their own podcast or went on some other went on. And there was a 10-15 year span where, I mean, other than some VHS shoot tapes, which weren't very journalistic, the only serious insider journalistic style interviews were Torch Talks, and they're in the pages of the Pro Wrestling Torch newsletter. So a lot of reasons to go VIP. PWTorch.com/GoVIP. Darrin, anything else you want to bring up? We covered a lot with Ashley and Jason and everybody. So is there anything else on the show you want to comment on before we sign off?
The only last little note I had was that Corey Graves said, and after this break, we're going to show you somebody who's going to bring some elegance to WWE. And me and my Impact brain was like, oh, they're going to bring in Ash by Elegance from TNA? That's odd. And it was instead Vinci. And they would be better off bringing in Ash by Elegance because like Vinci, I don't know if that's going to really work out. But I mean, at least they're trying with them with some vignettes.
I was going to say, give them A for effort. Yeah. I mean,
yes. they haven't given up on him. So that's a good sign.
No. Yeah, I mean, he wasn't bad. He just wasn't portrayed as a threat, and he was the designated jobber. Sure. So we'll see. I did not have. I thought they'd give up on him, and he'd end up on Impact. Yeah. So I'm curious if he rises to the occasion. I know. Yeah. Cool. Darrin, thank you so much. Great doing the show with you. Thanks to our everyone in the chat. Actually, Brock gave us a super chat, so I got to throw that up. Thank you, Brock, for the super chat. He says, "Great show. Really appreciate the super chats as always." And I'm just seeing if there's anything else in the chat room that I missed before I go. Lady B said this is it. Otis got screwed by the pandemic. The Mandy moment at WrestleMania was taken away from him because he was on the rise there during that time period too. But he's got a good career. He's had a nice career. Yeah. All right, cool. So Darrin, thanks. We'll talk to you soon, and I appreciate everybody who joined us today on the show. We'll talk to you all next time.